Once upon a time, there was a sweet little girl named Little Red Riding Hood. She lived with her mother and father in a village on the edge of a dark forest. Her grandmother lived on the other side of the forest, and Little Red would often go with her mother to visit. They would take a long, winding path through the woods, holding hands to stay safe. One day her mother said, "Little Red, I think you are old enough to make the journey to Grandma's house alone. I'm far too busy to go tomorrow, and she wrote to me that she's not feeling well. I want you to take this bread and soup. Be careful when you walk through the forest. I'm trusting you to stay on the path and not talk to strangers." Little Red promised that she would stay safe. She put on her red hooded cape and filled up her basket with the bread and soup. Early the next morning, she set off into the gloomy woods, singing happy tunes to lighten the darkness of the trail. She was excited to see Grandma and knew she would make her feel better with some company. As she walked through the forest, a wolf jumped onto the path in front of her. Little Red had never seen a wolf before. He was tall, gray, and furry, with a long snout and little pointed teeth. He grinned at Little Red, waving a paw tipped with sharp claws at her. She was so excited to meet a wolf that she wasn't afraid of him at all. "Good day to you," said the wolf. "Oh, how I love your little red hood. You look quite delightful." "Thank you, Mr. Wolf," said Little Red. "I'm taking some food to my grandmother's house, just around the bend in the path. She's not feeling too well." "Well, isn't that kind?" said the wolf. "What about some flowers? There are many pretty yellow flowers along this path. Maybe if you picked her a bunch, she would feel better." "That's a good idea," said Little Red. "I'll pick some straight away." Little Red paused her journey to fill her basket full of flowers. When she looked up from her picking, the wolf had disappeared. "What a nice creature," she thought as she carried on her way. As she rounded the bend, she could see Grandma's little cottage up ahead. It was a pretty white cottage with a thatched roof. When Little Red arrived at the door, to her surprise, she found it was wide open. In the middle of the room, Grandma lay in her bed with her cap pulled down over her eyes. She looked very ill and strange indeed. "Oh, Grandmother, what big ears you have," said Little Red. "All the better to hear you with," said Grandma in a deep voice. "Oh, Grandmother, what big eyes you have." "All the better to see you with." "Oh, Grandmother, what a big mouth you have." "All the better to eat you with." With that, Grandma jumped out of the bed. Little Red saw it wasn't Grandma at all. It was the wolf. She screamed and screamed. The wolf opened his mouth wide and came towards her. The door of the cottage opened with a huge crash. A woodsman had been tending the trees around Grandma's house and heard Little Red screaming. The wolf saw the man with his big axe. He jumped out of the window and ran back into the depths of the forest. "Little Red," said the woodsman, "did you talk to the nasty wolf? Don't you know not to talk to strangers? Wolves like to eat up little girls." "Mother told me, but I didn't think," Little Red said sadly. "He seemed like a nice wolf. I didn't think of him as a stranger because he was kind to me. Now Grandmother is missing, and it's all my fault." The woodsman checked under the bed and began to open all the cupboards. In the tall oak wardrobe he found Grandma, tied at the hands and feet, gagged with her own headscarf. The woodsman lifted her out and carefully set her free. "Oh, Grandma, I'm so glad you're safe," said Little Red. "I will never talk to strangers again, even if they don't seem scary." The woodsman shared in the soup and bread with Grandma and Little Red. From that day, Little Red knew to always be cautious of strangers.